Recently, I made it a goal for myself to read more classical books. Books that were written during these classical eras. Books that are ingrained into the human psyche. And I've done it for all the obvious reasons. Obviously, to understand what our predecessors wrote and read, and what really made them who they are. And because of that, I decided to read Don Quixote, a colossal book that is honestly one of the longest books I've ever read, and I'm still not even finished it. But even in the short span that I've read so far, I've realized that there is a huge theme that is really evident in my life, and I think in everybody's life, and a thought that is really important that we all take to mind. And essentially, the premise, what I believe the premise is that Don Quixote is a dreamer. He reads so much that his friends end up burning down his whole library effectively because he's become so infected in the books that he's read. But the interesting thing about this is that before this, Don Quixote was living a life, a mundane life, someone who's just tending to his farm and really had no prospects of having an interesting life. So the only way for him to escape this mundane existence is at first to read stories of people, of heroes who did extraordinary stuff. You know, especially in the 1500s, that would be conquering cities, saving the princess in the tower, and basically slaying dragons. So he's become so involved in these stories that he wants to do the same thing. And that's where he's able to escape his dreaming phase of just reading these books and to actually take action to live out these dreams of his. So because of this, he leaves his home and he starts going on epic adventures. Well, epic in the sense that they're a bit silly, but really, it's cool adventures. And that lesson kind of taught me on what can we draw from Don Quixote. How was he able to escape the zone of dreaming, the dreaming phase of life? And how was he able to live a life that ultimately was quite interesting, even if it was a bit humorous in certain areas? So that's what I really want to discuss today. How are we able to learn the lessons, or what lessons can we learn from Don Quixote? I think the first thing to state is that we all go through phases of endless dreaming. Whether we're a kid or teenage years or 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever it may be. We all go through phases where we're, dreaming about a better tomorrow. But sometimes that zone or dreaming is what I like to call it, can get a bit too far where we end up just thinking in the future and never actually living in the current moment. And that's what almost happened to Don Quixote when he was reading constant books of poetic, heroic deeds in the past. But like Don Quixote, it's important that if we want to escape this zone of dreaming, this dreaming phase of life, that we just do things. We do things, or we find things to emulate these heroes that we've read about, or these books or these stories that we've read about. And that's what I kind of found myself doing as well. I found myself a few years ago in this dreaming phase of life, constantly thinking about what if I do this, or how would it feel like if I wrote this essay or recorded a video or ran a half marathon or whatever it may be. I've always thought that this would be so cool, but I never did it. I was dreaming about doing the thing, or dreaming about a certain person doing that thing. But then I realized when I read Don Quixote, I realized that you can literally just do anything. You can do things. You can get up right now and just do the thing that you desire to do. And what I realized is that waiting for the perfect time to act on your dreams is effectively what makes dreams dreams. That's what allows dreams to stay in that phase, in that zone of dreaming. You really have to take action towards those dreams, and only then can your dreams actually become reality. And I remember I was reading a Substack article titled "You Can Literally Just Do Things," and I realized in that essay they talked about imperfect action is always better than no action. And the same can be said for Don Quixote as well. He didn't have, in one part of the book, he didn't have, a proper sword. He had basically a rusty spear. He didn't really have a helmet really. His horse, man, his horse was in a horrid state. But even with that, he still used the things that he did have to go on the adventures that he did. And he was able to tell the tale. So he still took imperfect actions towards the goals and dreams that he endeavored to achieve. Now, we could say that Don Quixote is a fictional tale. So what about somebody who's really done this? Somebody we can actually look up to in history? Well, because I love history, I've looked at people in the past who've done this, and one such person is Theodore Roosevelt. In one instance of his life, in his early teenage years, he was an avid reader due to the fact that he was in sickly condition. He was not the greatest athlete or the archetype of Theodore Roosevelt that you would think he is. But even with that, when he realized that he was reading tons of books, he read one book, or one poem rather, called The Flight of the Duchess. And he realized the contrast between himself and the Earl in that poem. The character in that poem, the Earl, he wanted to appear to be courageous because his ancestors were courageous, but he never actually did anything to really prove that to himself. He never actually took courageous actions. He just wanted to appear that way. And when Theodore Roosevelt read this, it had a visceral reaction within him, because he realized that if he really wanted to emulate these heroic deeds, these heroes that he was reading in his books, it's not enough to just read about them. You really have to embody their actions, or rather the qualities that they have. And from there, he really changed for the greater. If you could really pinpoint to one time frame in life that he really changed, I think that would be a great point. Really understanding that it's okay to read all these books, but it's really important that we apply the lessons and we do what we can to live an adventurous life. Living life as a quest, as endless steps or endless goals that we can always keep pushing forward and keep achieving. And from there, when you do that, you're able to turn dreams into reality. Concluding matter is that you can do anything, you can do things. You don't have to wait for the right time. Imperfect action is always better than perfect action. And also, I think reading these classical books can really teach you a huge lesson on qualities rather than informational step-by-step guides. Because when you read these classics like this, you really start to realize that these characters that you're reading about, they have a really interesting psychology, and we as human beings are all individual, so we can all gain lessons from these classical books. So, like Don Quixote, don't wait for the perfect time. Take the imperfect action now and do what you can.